Yo, what's up, everyone? You're listening to the Daily Unfucking Your CX, where I fix what's broken in customer experience in under 15 minutes. I'm Zack Hamilton, your host, and I'm looking forward to unfucking today. Yo, what's up, everyone? I am really looking forward to today's conversation. It really stems off of the poll that I ran last week, where more than 100 CX practitioners, leaders, consultants, even a few CEOs from retail, COOs, and even a few CIOs from the SaaS industry all weighed in on customer experience. And what's really interesting about these findings is what the results show is CX leadership is going through an absolute identity collapse. And when I say that, I don't mean it philosophically. I really mean it structurally. I mean it economically. I even mean it politically. And many of you probably saw that poll last week. Many of you probably contributed to it and weighed in and casted your vote. And if you did, thank you. But if you missed it, I asked one simple question. Which role actually wins in the next era of CX? Not what sounds good, not what we've been trained to say, not what the thought leaders are talking about, but what is actually going to survive. And the results weren't just interesting. Many of you actually sent me a DM after you casted your vote and said, this is actually a little uncomfortable. And I think that uncomfortability from the messages that I got and then in the comments, I think it's that uncomfortability because it revealed that as a CX discipline, as a CX practice, as a CX system, however you see CX, it revealed a great fragmentation. Now, think about it. I gave 4 different answers. So, 4 different answers, 4 different futures. If you want to look at it this way, 4 different survival strategies. And that tells me one thing very clearly. CX doesn't agree on what its job even is anymore. And that's not a maturity problem. That's an identity problem. So if you missed it, here's how it broke down, right? So I gave the 4 answers around business performance, decision architecture, power and influence, and operating systems. Now, here's how these 4 categories broke down. Business performance, 36%. Decision architecture, 34%. Power and influence, 18%. Operating systems, 13%. Now, on the surface, you might say, look, CX is finally waking up to business impact. Sure, but that's not what's actually happening. What's happening in CX is it's splitting into 2 camps. And each camp has figured out what's broken, but not how to fix it end to end. So let's start with the largest group, the business performance. These are CX leaders who have felt the heat. We even have CEOs and COOs and CIOs that even weighed in on this particular piece, business performance. But the CX leaders, you've sat in budget reviews. You've lived through layoffs. You've watched high CSAT coexist with headcount cuts. And I think you're voting with survival instincts. And your message is simple. If CX doesn't connect to revenue, cost, growth, or risk, it's done. And I completely agree with you. Look, I've lived that. I got asked the question, so what? I had to prove financial viability. But I think here's another truth. Most CX teams voting for business performance don't even have an operating model yet to deliver it. They know what they need to prove, but you're still missing how do I prove it? Now, camp number 2, let's talk about the group that almost tied for first, and that was decision architecture. Camp number 2. And this group sees the real enemy. Slow decisions. You don't have bad insights. Your organization doesn't lack empathy. You just struggle with decision paralysis. Too many signals, too many stakeholders, too much governance, no momentum. In this group, this camp, you understand something really critical. CX doesn't fail because we don't know what's broken. CX fails because nothing happens once we know. And here's the risk. Decision architecture without authority, it still stalls. You can design the perfect decision environment and still get ignored. Then we've got power and influence, a smaller percentage. But what I would say is do not underestimate it. These are the CX leaders who've learned the hard way that prioritization is absolutely political. It absolutely is political. And that's why I absolutely hated participating in those meetings. Roadmaps don't move because of insight quality. They move because of power. Budgets don't follow dashboards. They follow who owns the number. And this group understands internal selling, champion building, power mapping. But influence without proof ultimately is really just performance theater. And CX already has a credibility problem. And then we have the smallest group. But probably, if I had to guess, the most honest when it comes to operating systems. And these are the people who are living in the mess every single day right now. They've seen strategies die in decks. They've watched insights rot in governance. They know the brutal truth. Nothing, absolutely nothing changes without an execution engine. But execution without strategic pull ultimately gets deprioritized. And so here's the real takeaway from this poll. No single role wins. Not one. CX isn't choosing a future. It's revealing that role-based leadership no longer works. The future CX leader is not an insights manager, not a decision designer, not a political operator, not even an ops lead. The future CX leader is a system builder. This is exactly why I talk about CX as a performance system. Signals without decisions fail. Decisions without power stall. Power without execution collapses. Execution without outcomes gets cut. You don't fix that with a new VOC tool or a journey mapping tool. You fix it with an integrated system that turns friction into priority, priority into action, and action into business outcomes. That's the shift. CX hasn't lost credibility because it lacked empathy. CX has lost credibility because it couldn't convert empathy into decisions. The next era of CX doesn't need better dashboards. It needs leaders who can move the business. That's the real identity shift. Well, that's it for today's Daily Unfucking. If this made you think, follow the show, share it with someone that's still stuck in 2019 CX. I'll see you tomorrow.